lecture given by His Holiness Vikasa Swami, recorded on 11th December 1995 in Sri Varahavan, South India. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura, Disappearance Day.
Om Jnana Tasya Jnanam Jana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Today is celebrating the 59th anniversary of the 60th, 35th. He passed away in the night of December 31st, January 1st, 1935, 1936. Disappearance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada. So many pastimes he exhibited in this world, sometimes because we're seeing from the past, his pastimes, there may be a tendency to underestimate them. Just like Prabhupada, he crossed the sea, had heart attacks, struggled so much, but we read about it in the book or hear about it, and it's like in some ways we're separated from the reality of that experience. So in some ways it's like reading a novel. We know the ending, everything ended nicely in the end. They all lived happily ever afterwards. The ending is a foolish novel, which is never true. No one ever lives happily ever afterwards except in the spiritual world. We have such an idea in the material world. We lived happily ever afterwards. Big illusion. Anyway, reading a novel, if you know, that's why you read a novel, once you've read it, you can't read it again, because you already know what's going to happen. All the thrill is taken up. So if you know in a story that everything ends nicely, then all the difficulties that the persons undergo in it, they seem to be less significant. But actually the fact is that even great liberated souls who come to this world, it's not that their struggles are not struggles. Certainly they are great struggles. Certainly their feelings and emotions are completely real. Just like Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura, we read about how there were attempts on his life. It's not that he didn't feel that there's no attempt on him, simply go on with life. No, definitely he felt that struggle. He stood against everything which was not 100% bona fide in the line of Lord Chaitanya. He struggled. It wasn't that it wasn't a struggle. You read about Prabhupada in 1965 or 6. He was living in that apartment, at that attic with that crazy boy. And all of a sudden, unexpectedly, he was out on the street. He had to leave because he was in danger of his life. The boy was quite likely going to kill him. So there he was, a foreigner in a strange country, in the worst part of a very bad country, with no friends, no money, and just out on the street in the evening. And we look, Prabhupada's wonderful pastimes. But that was the reality. That Prabhupada was there and no shelter except Krishna. And that he went through all these things. That's just one incident. So many incidents that he went through. So many things he went through. So, in hearing the pastimes of a great personality, I sometimes think when we're telling these stories, the devotees listen, that's a nice story. Which is meant to really give us some inspiration. We have to write like this also. Of course we can't imitate, we can't be Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura. That moves. It's just like preaching strongly. He was preaching so strongly. Lion Guru, that Siya Das, Chittaranjan Das called him Singha Guru, Lion Guru. So it's not such an easy thing. Just when you speak so strongly to someone, you don't know how they're going to react. They might just accept it, or they're going to flare up and abuse you, or give you bad names, or go to the press and they might, among all their friends, give you a bad name, bad publicity. In our movement at the present time, we're very much concerned about good publicity. It's considered the height of any preaching endeavor if they could The people were favorable. They liked it. But many times we see that Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura, they preached in such a way that people didn't like it. They preached so strongly that people thought, just like I heard recently in America, there was this program on TV which they have lookalikes. They have people imitate someone else. They look like them and they dress them. So they had Prabhupada on there, which is somewhat well known. So they had some Indian man was imitating Prabhupada. They had the devotees coming and bowing down, and that's supposed to be caricature. It's supposed to show him in a bad light. So they had Prabhupada sitting on the wall, this is an imitation. Scientists are all fools and rascals. This they picked up on, and all the different things that Prabhupada, that he was always speaking very strongly against scientists and fools. So they picked up on that, and actually it's a fact. If you see, Prabhupada was so many times speaking so strongly, and people, often they didn't like it. In that time in America, Prabhupada came, and the women's lib people were so strongly against him. And they came and they challenged him directly. And they were in an angry mood, and Prabhupada didn't. It's alright, don't worry, we don't really mean it. He just repeated the same things, and they left, slamming the door. And it was terrible. They put very bad reports in the newspaper. But Prabhupada, he wanted to stick to his point. Even in 1969, he was saying, just after they'd supposedly gone to the moon, and America was in euphoria. This is like the summit of American success. We've been building up for, how long? 200 years? We've been building up for 200 years. We've led the world in technology and civilization and development. This is the summit. We've been to the moon. And Prabhupada said, you ever went to the moon? And even if you did, it's just child's play. What is the benefit? Just like putting a pin in the balloon. Even that reporter, he was a very liberal, open-minded man, but he just couldn't. But Swamiji, do you really mean to say that they never went to the moon? Yes. But it seems very difficult to understand because so many people probably just stopped his point. He didn't care for the so-called good publicity. So the same thing, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura. He stood against the whole current of the society. The whole current. Even in his early life, he enacted the pastime of becoming discouraged. He was preaching so strongly, so strong. People didn't, because there's all these bogus people imitating advanced devotees. And he was called to one assembly. He simply wanted to speak. 3 days he didn't speak, he didn't eat. They would bring him so much nice Mahaprasad, so-called Mahaprasad. He didn't even accept this as prasad, because the people who were offering it were not in proper consciousness. Simply he will see in Bengal a big show of Krishna consciousness, big kirtan, big emotional show, big lectures about mercy of Lord Chaitanya. He didn't accept that these were bona fide Vaishnavas because it was all just a big show. So every day they'd bring him a big plate of prasad and take a tulsi. He'd take a prasad. And after 3 days they hadn't invited him to speak. He simply left without telling him. And walked.
Convention?
Yeah, that was the, which Maharaj? The Maharaj of Kuch Bihar. Yeah, he invited so many for like a festival, Sankirtan and speaking festival. He didn't, because he was a young man at that time, no reputation. He wasn't head of any institution. He was Dhamma Prasad. Of course, he was known, that's why they invited him. He was the son of Bhaktisiddhanta, respected. So, but they didn't invite him to speak. So, if he had spoken, he would have blessed it. They didn't, so he simply walked to Mayapur, back to the shelter, the coffee shelter. The coffee shelter. Then he finished his Shatakoti Nam Japa Yogi. It's 1 billion names, 1,000 million times chanting the whole mantra. At the end of that, in his dream, all the Guru Parampara, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the Goswamis, they all told him, you just go and preach. Don't worry for these. Just speak the truth. Don't be afraid. we are with you. So he did. And some people were attracted. And many, of course, he had to go through many difficulties. He spoke very strongly. At the end of his life, he said that he made a kind of apology, not exactly apology. He said that there are many people who I've given many difficulties to, and many people have misunderstood. That while speaking for their benefit, they've become upset. But anyway, I had to speak to this, and if anyone felt upset, please don't mind. So he was very strong, very direct, very powerful. And yes, his words, he was so strong and so direct and so pure, he had the potency to cut through the illusion, covering people's consciousness, reach through to the Krishna consciousness, to expose to themselves their incorrect position. He used to say that my father trained me as a proofreader because Thakura was very interested in printing books and publishing books. So he trained his young son. Of course, he had so many sons, but this son in particular he took under his wing, trained him. Right? Even as a young boy, he would take him with him wherever he went. He often used to visit different holy places. He would always take him with him to visit holy people and unholy people posing as holy people. He would sometimes visit. He trained him from the very beginning. So he trained him in all aspects of machine, how the printing machine works. He knew if the machine was broken, what the senses were told, he could repair it. He knew everything about printing, typesetting, proofreading. So he used to say that my father trained me in proofreading, but I don't only proofread books. I proofread people. I proofread religions. I proofread the world. I find their fault and I correct it. In this relation, he also said that I was born in Calcutta Lagna, the symbol of the crab. So like a crab, I catch a hold of people and pinch them very sharply. So he told like that. So that I read in your book last night. It's an interesting realization you said. Okay, what is it you're saying? That an empowered sadhu has the potency to awaken Krishna consciousness in the hearts of others. So many people may go and speak the same message, but some have the potency to awaken others in Krishna consciousness. One person may say the same thing, one devotee may say the same thing, another may say the same thing, but one is potent. Therefore, he can awaken the Krishna consciousness in another. Just like in the sex act, two men may do. One may have the potency to conceive a child, the other not, even though they're doing the same thing. Prabhupada, he's stressed that in his books, that the members of the Krishna conscious movement, they should follow the regulated principles, chant 16 rounds without offenses. In this way, they will have a potency. So, of course, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura, he chanted, so he was trained up from the very birth, and he chanted so much. Anyway, he is directly from the spiritual world. He has so much power, so much potency. Otherwise, to push back, practically his whole life was spent in pushing back the non-devotional ideas. In preaching, there are two things. Prem pracharana prashanda dhamma. The preaching love of God and subduing the atheists. So the whole scene was so full of wrong ideas, of what is Krishna consciousness, that to present the correct idea is really difficult in that situation. We find that in our own movement at the present time too. Like Prabhupada said that when he came back to India, he said, when I preach in the West, it's much easier. The people, they just accept what I say and they follow. But in India, they'll say, why this, why that, why not this, why not that. There are so many ideas. Now it's like that in the West also. Devotees and non-devotees have been exposed to so many different things. They'll say, why this? And we say, well, Prabhupada said. Well, Prabhupada said so many things. And, well, Prabhupada said this, but someone else, Swami, said this, and what about this, and it's okay to do that. The same kind of mood is prevalent. So it's actually in many ways it's more difficult to preach. In other ways it's better. Just like preaching in India, you have the advantage that people, they have some knowledge, some information. So the inclination of people has increased in the West to the preaching. But at the same time, they've got so many different ideas that the difficulty is that it also. Now we find in Eastern Europe, people are fresh. And it's fresh preaching field. And after some time they'll impart so many different things also. Many of the things are imparted through our own ISKCON channels. It's like a virus in the computer labs. You say the communist is a virus. You set in the thing you want, but along with it is the disease. So many times you find even our own devotees, because they haven't been trained exactly in following Prabhupada exactly, maybe they got that training, but there's so many other things available to them. They found some attraction to so many different representations of karma, jnana, yoga, or just plain atheism or mayavad under the cover of Krishna consciousness or semi-Krishna consciousness. That they've picked up so many other things. Sahajiya, mayavad. So these things, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura, he was fighting against it, to establish that this is the actual path of Lord Chaitanya. It was a very bold thing. And from the external point of view, it might appear to be a very arrogant thing, what he was saying, because there were so many Vaishnavas, followers of Lord Chaitanya, chanting the names of Krishna, wearing tilak, having their temples. And Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura said that with a few exceptions, you're all wrong. You're not following Lord Chaitanya. You're all off the line. And so who is correct? I am correct. I am teaching what is actually the line. It was, people considered him to be not proper Vaishnava. Vaishnava is very humble. Vaishnava he doesn't criticize others. These ideas were good. He came into Vrindavan where there were not even any roads at that time. They just said dirt trucks. He came in a car. No one had ever come in a car. Maybe I think even the Maharajas, they wouldn't come in a car, just to keep them in bed. He came, sannyasi, in a car. And after that time, sannyasis, they weren't even going in bullock cars. And he came in a car. And the people of Babaji's said, no, I have come to teach you how to follow Lord Chaitanya. You don't know. And Babaji's living there, all their lives in Vrindavan. People respect them, come to them, bow down before them, accept their advice. And you don't know how to follow Lord Chaitanya. This is the way to follow Lord Chaitanya. In a big car, with bodyguards, dressed in Western clothes. This is following Lord Chaitanya. Yukta Vairagya. Preach Krishna consciousness all over the world. So definitely the most revolutionary figure. Giving sannyas, Brahmin initiation. How can you give Brahmin initiation? You're not a Brahmin yourself. It's not from Brahmin family. And your Guru, he didn't give you Brahmin initiation. Then how are you giving? Not Brahmin family. Kayastha, Datta. It's respectable family, landlord, not Brahmin. So they were. Now it came to be accepted in the course of time. It's like any something like Ramanuja, when he was preaching, they called it the new religion, because it appeared at that time. It appeared that he was just doing something completely new and different. That he, by the force of his personality and his purity and the fact that he actually was bona fide, he was sent by God to do this work. Therefore, he established that yes, this is actually bona fide on the basis of Shastra. And in course of time, it came to be accepted. Although there are those who even today don't accept it, but more or less it's accepted. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur's work is accepted. At that time in Bengal and Orissa is considered Vaishnava Guru can only be who comes in one of these parivars, with lines of family descendants. Now that idea is gone. We couldn't be preaching here in India if it wasn't for his work. Even now Westerners are accepted as devotees, brahmanas, sannyasis, gurus. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura, only he established this. Otherwise it couldn't have been accepted. He had to fight, literally. He wanted to kill him. He actually wanted to kill him. He had vested interest. You can see what a hubbub he created. who will kill sadhu. Even the other sadhu, even they may have their own self-interest, but to actually go as far as to kill someone, he was so upset by it. He said, no, this is the right path, you're on the wrong path. So, anyway, there's so many stories, you know all these things, and this is just some of my own meditations. Just a few stories I don't have anything to do. Yeah, just to show. The one, someone's, I have my sheets with me. Sometimes I think the first time I told these we started in the morning in class in Calcutta, 6:30 in the morning, and we broke 7:15 for Guru Puja and beauty greeting. And I went right up till 12 o'clock midday, just with the Pushpanjali, and sometimes breaking for bhajan. So there are a lot of things. It's going to be a great book. It's just one man came. He wanted initiation from Saraswati Thakura. He had a beard. Alright. I didn't tell the story, just came to me. So Saraswati Thakura said, yeah, you can take initiation, but you have to shave off your beard. To shave off my beard? So can't I keep my beard? So you have to decide, what is dear to you, your beard or Krishna? So he decided his beard is dear. He didn't take initiation. Another time, a man came, he was a school teacher, this man, he was respectable. Another time, another school teacher came to him and said that we are deep in the well of material existence. Why don't you give us some easy method to come on? All these things, don't eat fish, don't drink tea. Please give us some easy method. Because we're so fun. So Siddhanta Saraswati said that you should come out of the well. Don't drag me into the well. You take what I say and you'll be saved. But if I have to compromise with you, then I'll also become fallen like you. Another time, he was collecting money in Calcutta for a theistic exhibition. Now at this time there was a tremendous flood in Mednipur district in West Bengal. And the flood was followed by famine, cholera, so many things. So he'd collected a huge amount of money, he was going to do this theistic exhibition. But there arose a great protest. This money you've used, now you should spend it for the uplift of the poor people in Mednipur who are suffering so much. And there's a lot of protest because, of course, Vivekananda had propagated this idea that service to man is service to God. So big people protested. Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi protested. Annie Besant, who was big figure. And Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose also. They protested that you shouldn't use this money. Don't go ahead with your theistic exhibition. You collected a lot of money. Now you should use it for flood famine relief. And Bose, of course, he wouldn't just protest verbally, but he would do something. So he organized a blockade around the Gaudiya Math. It was a fight. Yeah, it was a fight. Fighting. Out of prison at that time. So he organized a blockade. But Siddhanta Saraswati, he went on with his work. He said, no, said the real famine in this world, this time he said, like Prabhupada used to quote, there's no shortage in this world, the only shortage is shortage of Krishna consciousness. Hari Katha. There's a famine of Hari Katha. So if there's Hari Katha and spread, then there'll be no other problem. So he went ahead with the exhibition and it was very popular. At this time, he said that we need a daily newspaper to present our message, because he already had regular periodical magazines in English, 2 in Bengali, in Hindi, in Oriya and Assamese. He had 6 magazines going on regularly, of which only one of them is still going on, the Paramarthi in Oriya. And different mats have their own magazines. But the original one which he started, the Paramarthi, that's the only one there. Well, the Gaudiya, that's also not like. So anyway, at this time he said we need a regular English daily to present our views to the educated people. I had an English periodical that was philosophical. This is also to be philosophical, but to be related to topical newspaper, to present the news and the Vaishnava Siddhanta. So that time they started the daily. Was it? No, that was no. Then the harmonist came after that. Then Bengali Nadia Prakash, daily newspaper started. Daily newspaper. And then later the harmonist came, which was an English version of that. Well, the harmonist was that was carrying on from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Sajjana Toshini magazine, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur turned that over to Vimala Prasad. Now, the person, he came to ask, how could you have a daily newspaper about spiritual topics? There's Madan Mohan Malavya, who was the founder of the Hindu University in Benares, and a very prominent figure, a very famous name even now in Indian history, modern Indian history. He was very favorable to him. He liked Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur. He said, we used to come and talk with him and bring his questions and his objections. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, he used to sit with people for 2 hours and just speak to them. He told them, one time a group of highly educated people, advocates, lawyers, they came to him. And he just told them, they had many objections. He said, just you do one thing, don't bring your objections. Just listen to me. So she spoke for 2 hours and he said, now, do you have any objections? No. Whatever objections they had, they were satisfied with what he said. So Madan Mohan Malavya came to him and asked, how can you have a daily newspaper about spiritual matters? Then Prabhupada told this story. It's well known. So even in Calcutta, there were more than 24 newspapers at that time. So Calcutta is just a tiny city, in a tiny country, in a tiny continent, in a tiny planet, in a tiny universe. There are millions and billions of universes, and all the millions and billions of universes are just like a cloud in the sky compared to the Vaikuntha planet. So why should we could print a newspaper every second, but there is lack of hearers. We have enough news. So this Madan Mohan Malavya, he said that he was very satisfied, and he said we need thousands of sannyasis, like Bhaktisiddhanta. He said he agreed, because Madan Mohan Malavya, he was a prominent figure in the Indian independence movement. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur said, this is the real independence movement. So that independent movement is not very important. You see how it's just going against everybody. The whole of Indian society, with the exception of a few dalals, a few British chumchas, people who cooperated with them, they all agreed. Everyone in the Indian society agreed. British, we should get them out. And he could have just said, yes, go on with your movement, done it separately, but he deliberately said, no use. You're useless. The Indian independence movement, and practically we've seen that even the older people, many of them still agree. Prabhupada used to say also, India was much better than the British. If they'd have changed, Prabhupada said that at the time of independence, they should have made Krishna consciousness the state religion. They didn't do that. They brought all the Rakshasa, they continued at a more intense pitch, all the Rakshasa principles that the British had introduced. And instead of the British administering and exploiting, the Indians administered and exploited. But the British, they had an idea to manage the country nicely and then take some share. They had some moral principles. The Indians, they don't care about managing the country at all. And they just want to loot it without any input at all. So in this way, anyway, that's a whole political question. Western Saraswati Thakur said, that's independence. This is not useless. Real independence movement is to go back home, back together. So Madan Mohan Malavya, even though he was a prominent figure in the Indian independence movement, he very much appreciated Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur and said that we need thousands of sannyasis to go all over the country and reform the country. This is the real reform movement. So he appreciated that also. Now others like Netaji Subhash, he didn't like Bhakti. He respected him as a sadhu, but he thought that his preaching was detrimental to their movement, which it was. So anyway, one story about Varahavan. One time he came to Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati and he said, I have some very intricate philosophical questions. Because in those days a lot of people were very much educated and they knew Shastra, and of course in Shastra, they knew Shastra to some extent. No one knows Shastra everything, except those who are true devotees of Krishna. But there are many questions and there are many apparent contradictions in the Shastra. So there would be many complex philosophical questions, just like we see in the Krishna book. Even great sages, they very learned in the Shastra, they were confused as to who is actually God. So they sent Bhrigu Muni to test Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva to find out who is actually supreme. So like this, there are many questions. And Madam Mahalavya came and said, I have some very complex philosophical questions, you please answer. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, you please go and ask the pujaris, they will answer your questions. Now, most of the members of the Glory Mat, some of them were great personalities, highly educated, and even from the material point of view, were special people. As we think of Srila Maharaj, Siddhanti Maharaj, very educated. Even Bon Maharaj is highly educated, although spiritually that's another story. So some Sundarananda Vidya Vinod, very big scholar. So there were some very educated and cultured people, but most of the members were not very much educated. Just like nowadays in Bengal, in any Glory Mat or in ISKCON, there are a handful of people who are actually very cultured and educated. So Bhakti Maharaj, very cultured and educated, and most of them remain some, mostly not so. Right. What their standard of devotion is, that's another thing. I'm not saying anything against that. But most of them not so intelligent, not much educated. So when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told that you go and see the pujaris, the pujaris means they're not so educated people, either spiritually or materially. They're engaged in service. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, you go and see the pujaris. He said, the pujari, the questions I have, I don't think anyone but you can answer. Even you have some answers. I don't think you can answer. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, you please go and see the pujaris. You ask the questions from them. So he was submissive to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, even though it could be taken as an insult. Head of the Benares Hindu University, he's being sent to some educated, uneducated boys to be asked some questions about philosophy. So it would almost seem like an insult, but he was submissive enough to go. So he said to the pujaris, I have some questions. He said, all right, but we're cleaning the deity's brass now. So you kindly help us, and then we'll discuss whatever is to be discussed. So he was cleaning the brass, big man, famous man all over India, big scholar, cleaning the brass. Then finished cleaning the brass without asking any questions. He came back to Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So Saraswati Thakur asked him, so did you get the answer to your question? He said, yes. Just I was cleaning the brass, and as I was cleaning, all the answers to my questions came in my mind. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, yes, Sevam Mukhe Hiji Vado Swami Vispyati. Simply by intelligence you can't be satisfied with you, then knowledge will be revealed to you. Because he was thinking, I'm a big scholar, I have to discuss these questions. No one else but Siddhanta Saraswati can understand my questions. But when he cleaned the brass, Saraswati Thakur is in contact with the Super Soul, he arranged that all his questions would be answered. So like this, there are some wonderful leelas. Of course, any perfect soul, he automatically attains all the yoga siddhis. He knows everything. What's in people's mind, so many different things. Well, there are so many stories like that one time. He was standing in the Nat Mandir in Kathak, which means it's about, it must have been about 30 feet away from Krishna, the deity. And so there's an ant crawling on Krishna's front, just disturbing Krishna, removing. Who can see an ant at such a distance? Another time in the same temple, in the morning, he came before the Mangalarti and told the Pujari that you didn't put Krishna's mosquito net last night. Krishna couldn't sleep last night. How could he know? Before the temple was open. Pujari closed the temple at night, no one is there. So you forgot to put, did you forget to put your own mosquito net? No. You forgot to put Krishna's. Krishna was disturbed, he couldn't sleep last night. So like there's so many stories. One time he was going on the train, and he was in the first class, and the brahmacharis were travelling in the third class. Those times we had third class. So this devotee told me all these stories. Most of them were talking to me. He was sitting in the train, and Sarasvati Thakura came into the compartment, and then he said, "Sri Sangha culture." He used to speak in Bengali. You're associating with women. So he looked at him, there's no woman. And you're leaning against here. You're leaning against the seat. It means you're enjoying some comfort of the body. That's the same. Associating with women. And he said, Aram is haram. Haram means comfort. And haram means something abominable. So like this, it was very, very strict. Another time, Jati Shekhar was doing, he was a young brahmachari, young boy at that time. So they used to arrange festivals in different towns and villages, and they would carry on the mat all so many big pots and cooking for Sunday. So his job was to put in the station. When the train came in the station, he was supposed to put all the cooking pots in. And so the train came, put all the pots in, and he hadn't finished and the train left because it hadn't stopped. So Siddhanta then he had to tell us about the Sarasvati Thakura had made such a... So, he should have hired some coolies, and then they would just put them all in the time, but he thought it's safer. So Sarasvati Thakura told him, penny wise, pound foolish. That's just must. That's all I say. Another time at the station, Jati Shekhar arranged. He went ahead to arrange in the waiting room a place for him. He would come, he would make sure that everyone comes, put some cloth on the seat, and make a nice arrangement so the host could come and sit down at his feet while he was waiting for the train. So when he came to the station, he got into the waiting room. He looked, there's ladies waiting. He didn't see he had arranged in the ladies' waiting room. He didn't like cheating methods for collecting money. Didn't like it at all. He didn't approve of that. No, how about he allowed to some extent? You told him, you heard that when he said that some people are accusing our Guru Kripa Maharaj of stealing. You were there when he said that? I heard it on the tape.
I heard it in the conversation.
It was in the lecture. So, but if someone steals something from someone else, and someone else comes to that person and steals it from him and gives it back to the owner, then that person who steals it from the thief is the most moral person. So he said, in the same way, everyone in this material world is stealing from Krishna. So if someone takes their money and gives it to Krishna, he is the most moral person. He is justifying Guru Kripa's stealing, which is pretty far out, to say the least. In public, in the class, he was just... The Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura, he didn't like this at all. He used to say, whatever comes, you see. He didn't like the spirit of competition, who can collect the most and be the biggest collector. Then he was very careful to keep the purity. One time he felt, he heard some devotee say, I collected so much, and I'm supporting the whole temple by my collection. So this mood was building up in Gauri Mata Kalpa. No one should go out of this temple for 12 days. Everyone stay here and chant all day. It's the only service for the next 12 days. So he went out one day collecting himself, only one person. just with this Uttariya, not to do. A few people there, the head of the institution, respected person. One day he went out, other days he didn't go home. He also stayed. Without any asking, so many things came. Rice, ghee, flour, so many things came. I told him, don't think you're maintaining. Lakshmi, she is Radharani, she is maintaining this temple. Not you. Don't think you're maintaining. She is satisfied with your Krishna consciousness, she will send some other things. Otherwise, nothing like that. And we see that practically, that even the same temples may be there, but if they don't have the preaching mood, then even they're going and collecting, they can hardly, they can just live. Jati Shekhar told me in those days they used to have Gloria Mountain. Fantastic feasts on feast days. But nowadays, on feast days, they can't. They don't have anything. The Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura, he was asked, he was establishing so many temples. So, people used to ask him that you're just establishing a temple, but usually when people make a temple, they arrange some land to go with it, to maintain the deities in future. So why are you not doing it? What will happen in the future? He said, if the residents of the mat, if they go out and preach, then automatically Krishna will be satisfied, people will give donations and everything will run on this. And if they don't preach, there's no use to having the temple, so we'll close the temple. You might as well close the temple, there's no need for the temple unless they preach. He said, close the temple. Who would speak such a thing? No one speaks, we close it. He said that same thing, revolutionary. Better we tear down the temple, the marble from the temple, and sell it and print books. Who would say such a thing? No one would say, close the temple, break down the temple and print books. We're saying that there's no life. If there's no life of preaching, you don't need a temple. So like this, he was maybe the most revolutionary figure in the history of this country. Real revolution, not Karl Marx, Lenin, not that kind of real revolution. Revolution means something's gone, you have to bring it round to the original point. The whole of Indian culture has gone so far away from the original thing, you have to bring it round to the original point by his revolution. I was thinking to do some writing this morning. Should I go on? I think if you tell me to go on, I can go on about myself. What I was talking about, this bogus collection. There was one, what was his name? Bodhayan Maharaj. So his whole thing was, he used to say, Bhaktisiddhanta used to lament many times, Pariyachulam Shanyashi Hoigelo Bilashi. Bring this in the book, send a few tremors to our movement. I made them sannyasis, but they've all become Bilashi, sense enjoyers. Pariyachulam Shanyashi Hoigelo Bilashi. He used to lament many times. He made 12 sannyasis. Of them, he said, they become sense, in the name of sannyas, they simply become sense enjoyers. So, this Bodhayan Maharaj, his whole thing was to meet big, rich people and collect money from them. This was his whole pleasure in life, really having deep spiritual motivation. So one time, he went to visit the income tax collector in Cuttack, Orissa, and said, you please come with me for collection, for preaching. His idea was that if he went to the Marwaris, who were all cheating on their income tax, if they saw him coming with the Goya Matsanasi, they'll all give a good donation out of the fear. So he refused. He said, I can't come with you. I can't. It's not proper. So he said, well, at least let me use your car and to go back to the mat. He said, all right, no problem. In some pretext. So he went back to the mat in the car. He took a diversion through the bazaar and stopped at every Marwari shop with the income tax collector's car and told that the income tax collector has I just went to see him, and he told that you should go and collect from all the Malaris. I said, and I know everything they're doing, but you just take some, collect. So he collected a lot. So many things. He came with cloth, grains, money. Then he came back to the mat. That time Siddhanta Saraswati was staying at the mat in Kata. Then, from outside the gate, he called out 3 times. Jaya Vishnupad, Paramahamsa, Parivrajagacharya, Ashtota, Srila, Srila, Bhaktisiddhanta, Sarasvati, Thakura, Goswami, Maharaj, Prabhupada, Jai! 3 times he called out. He thought that Saraswati Thakura was going to be really in bliss because he collected so much. But when he saw, immediately seeing Saraswati Thakura was suspicious. How have you collected so much? How have you collected all these things? So, he was trying to avoid, but eventually he understood what was a real thing. Take it off. So, he just came back at the same time from Vikasa collection. And he came, just from door to door, he came in his Italia. He had collected some rice, dal, vegetables. So he came and he brought to it. This is very nice. This collection is separate. He said, Krishna is pleased by this. And Krishna is not pleased by your collection. Bring it back. So he wasn't against collection, but he liked that you would preach to people about Krishna consciousness and then being satisfied with your explanations. Then on the basis of that, if they gave some donation, you should try to uplift the people, give them knowledge. They used to have every day that people, the brahmacharis and sannyasis would go out daily collecting. You go door to door. And you bring maybe some pamphlets and something. You go collect, then people would ask them, why should we give money to you? And they would explain, and then there would be some discussion. So every day, at midday, after taking prasad, they would have Ishtagoshti. And sometimes Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur would conduct it, otherwise he's sannyasi, or sometimes senior members of the household. There were some senior members also, Kunjada householder, that Sundarananda, they said, and Nishikant Sanya in Kata. He was the leading spiritual figure in Kata, even now. He was a householder, but very knowledgeable, and Saraswati Thakur liked him very much. He had a very good income as a professor at British College, but he used to give all his income every month to Saraswati Thakur. He was giving back just enough to survive. He was getting good income, but he was living just as a very simple person with all his money he gave to the monk. So they would conduct Ishtagoshti every day, and then the questions would. So people, they're going door to door. Someone would ask a question, they can't answer. They say, "Please wait till tomorrow, I'll come back with you." So they're like this. This way they learn how to preach the people. They come giving questions. Well, someone asked me this question, and what is the answer? And the question will be answered, and then go back the next day. This way, people were very satisfied. They're getting spiritual knowledge, and would like to give donations. So like this, he was collecting donations. Prabhupada in Vaisheshashtakam, he noted about Saraswati Thakur once that sadhus, they go to the forest to avoid the company of low-class people and lectures. But you, say, speaking to Saraswati Thakur, said that you invite them to lectures and make him the president of your assembly, because he would bring British governors to preside over some function. So he like this, he was completely revolutionary. Such a person, if a Britisher came to someone's house or mat, they wouldn't invite them, because then the whole place would be considered impure. And if by chance such a person came, then they'd have to have a whole ceremony, light the whole building inside and out with cow dung and water, have mantras chanted, or maybe it was a mud house, they just abandoned it. They considered it so impure that a cow eater would come to them. The caste consciousness was so strong. He would invite them as the chief guest in the function. And you can imagine, they were thinking that he was spoiling the whole culture. They accused Prabhupada and said that you're spoiling the Hindu religion by allowing these lectures to chant Hare Krishna, calling them Brahmins and making them sannyasis. So this way he was fighting, revolutionary fighter. In South India, he said about South India, he said, I like preaching in South India very much. He said, I was going to spend 10 years more in this world, but he was fed up with the fighting with his own disciples, so he left over. He said, I'm moving early. But there are two things I wanted to do. I wanted to establish a temple of Radharani and Radha Kund, is one thing. And the other thing he said, I wanted to preach in South India, because he concentrated mostly on Bengal and Orissa. So the people of South India are very nice. They have devotion, but they know Archan, but they don't know Kirtan. And they know Lakshmi Narayan, but they don't know Radha Krishna. So these two things he wanted to introduce in South India. Kirtan, of course they have Kirtan, but they don't stress on Kirtan. Like in Bengal, everyone knows the stress on Kirtan rather than Archan. They take Archan and bombastic ceremonies to be the most important thing, ritualism. But Gaudiya Vaishnavism means Kirtan. So he wanted to introduce Kirtan culture and Radha Krishna. They know Lakshmi Narayan or in reverence, but Radha Krishna worship. He wanted to introduce that. Which is why I think in Bangalore they're making the main deity Krishna Balaram, which is following the Udupi, Madhva, and not necessary to do. They can preach with Radha Krishna. They don't know those things. They're doing Rati Yatra also with Krishna. There's one letter that says, why are you introducing speculation? Rati Yatra means Jagannath Subhadra. Even what Prabhupada said, what to speak about Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada. Many times devotees, they don't know, and they don't care to know. And it's good for public opinion. We're doing this because it's good for public opinion. And that's considered the be-all and end-all of preaching. And so, then you'll find, we're also eating hamburgers because it's good for people will accept us. What's the limit? What's the limit? There's no limit. I saw ISKCON World Review. They were giving a report how some children went in some, parade, Save the Earth or Stop the Cruelty to the Whales or something, some parade. And it reported they were singing, Give Peace a Chance, and My Sweet Lord. It reported that they were singing, and our ISKCON is supposed to be Gurukul children. They sang, Give Peace a Chance, which is completely nonsense. This rascal John Lennon. Who's the names he's quoting? Timothy Leary and Andy Warhol and Allen Ginsberg. That's why he's quoting all these names of these completely debauched and depraved people. They're all saying, Give Peace a Chance. Neither did this one. They didn't say they were chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But it's good for public opinion. So, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was just the opposite. He said, we're not interested in satisfying the Janata, the public. We're interested in satisfying Janardhan. He was very strong on that point. The public should be trained to be satisfied with what Krishna is satisfied with. Not that we should present Krishna, that here is Krishna, we're presenting him in such a way that you will be satisfied. We don't dress Krishna in a nice outfit anymore, put some jeans and a t-shirt on. The people will like it. They'll think he's one of us. Well, where is the limit? I don't know. I saw someone sent me from America advertisement for Durga Mahayagya conducted at Hare Krishna Temple, Washington. And people come and they ask them for donation. You get a donation. For what? Avatar means there was a handbill which was sent to Allah. It was not conducted by our devotees. Some bogus Mayavadi. They must have paid some money. They said Mahaprasad will be distributed. Mahaprasad means Devi Prasad, not Krishna Prasad. One thing I was thinking when I saw that is that our devotees, they always used to criticize the Glory Mat, they're out of it. But to this day, no Glory Mat has ever had a durga given in the temple. So we were criticizing, but see, if you don't follow exactly what Prabhupada says, and at least the Glory Mat here in India has some culture. Here in America, we don't even have that. So if we don't follow exactly what Prabhupada says, what India heard that in Kali Yuga, 5,000 years, they come to this position, Hinduism, the Vedic culture. Still they have some culture, and Hinduism it's all mixed up. But we don't have that background of culture. So if we don't follow Prabhupada, then very quickly we'll be finished. The next thing will be bingo in the temple. The Catholic and Christian churches, the one is coming, why are they doing this Durga Mahayagya? Because there's no one, and they're not preaching, therefore maintenance is not coming. Big temple and water bottles. Washington. So the same thing Christian church, they can't maintain, they have a big temple, no one's coming. So they have bingo night. You have Durga Mahayagya, they will be bingo. And they have Garba dancing, always in Garba dancing. Traditional Gujarati dance. The way they're doing it is not true. We do it to, nowadays they do it to disco music. In Goya Mat also, we never had that disco music in our temples. No, I've heard it's done in some temples in America. Well then, during the Navaratri in Gujarat, it's a traditional dance which they do for the baby. The sticks, we must assume they dance. It's a cultural thing for the pleasure of baby, which we don't have. Yeah, but nowadays it's all mixed up. Men and women do it together, and it's become, they have disco music. Still you'll find in the villages I've seen, still they do it the traditional style, some people. But now in big cities like Baroda and Ahmedabad, they have famous musicians come, and you have to pay 100 rupees to go into, like they build a little stadium to go in. It's like a high class nowadays. And there's so many pregnancies after this. You can imagine, because they're all dressed up, and it's just a whole sex thing. So it's become completely degraded. And then you can imagine in America how they're doing it. Next thing they'll be having a barbecue. Hindus eat meat. These days, remembering our acharyas, it shouldn't be just telling stories, but the mood about the sensation Thakura, that mood of just Krishna, that's all. No nonsense. Then you're going to be degraded. That's what they were preaching. They were preaching. Why are they acharyas? Why are we glorifying? So many devotees came and went. So why are we celebrating? Why do we celebrate the appearance and disappearances of our acharyas? Because they were acharyas. They stuck to the point. They didn't deviate. And they powerfully propagated it. So we may not be so powerful, but at least we have to stick to the point. Otherwise, yes, it'll be just like it'll be an empty celebration. Worshipping with flowers only. There's no life. Prana Cheja Shri. There's no life we can teach. Yeah, going back to America. We're going back to America. The position of most of our temples is very sad. Very sad. What I've heard, the congregation, among people who are not living in the temples, the movements are spreading.
all he did was go home to the Glories separate from the temple. No, all nice and blood and all the one side.
They're boys.
No, 30 people there. Not all that are young. People are so different, everything different. I can pack everything up and
That was not very intelligent.
I don't feel that he's a gardener and crackhead, but
No, it's not very intelligent just to walk into a dark room. But
they know they would do that. I mean, in other words, they were inspired by a little attention from the seniors and this. The same. I think there's great scope to round it up a little bit.
Yeah. So many devotees
Sell out and move to India.
devotees are living outside, but actually they even they may criticize this and this and that, but they would like to see, they want Krishna consciousness. And even they may be watching TV and this and that, but it's lack of association, weakness, which you get from living in the miserable material world among miserable materialistic people.
The scope is pretty Krishna conscious. They all that are true.
I think the general would be like, it's like Thakur Darshan, he's good at talking enthusiastically and bringing people, but then he can't hold them because they're very similar. He can't hold them because they're both passionate. They can get people they can infuse people, but they don't have that mode of goodness. They don't have the mode of goodness steadiness.
They're hungry for some spiritual association, and you just convince them part of that would be rejecting the life.
Not such a.
Not very
How many people can adjust to living in India?
It'll open my eyes to that everyone in America is
No, I don't. That's what I say. I think the temples are struggling, but there's a lot of congregation among us. They'll be struggling also due to the. Yeah, that's right. By the congregation, all kinds, and they want some association.
A lot of people don't even follow the way.
There's a lot of preaching to do on all different levels. Yeah, and naturally when you say it, you should go too. America is the most important country, there's no doubt about it. Getting America together is real. There's so many challenges facing the movement. Families, establishing what people can live in family life without divorce 3 times, 4 times, bringing up children, then the whole thing of Varnashram, education for the children, big challenges. And geographically, and just as one entity, America is the big. Unless we get America together, even the successive. He said that also about India. In the 4th country, he said that. I say America is most important because it is definitely the cultural leader of the world. It absolutely America leads the world. Everyone's following America. And this, it's like the karmic, just sometimes the karmic influence favored Rome, sometimes Egypt, sometimes Greece, and now it's America. And people tend to have good karma, good looking, good intelligence, especially intelligence is very important. More spiritually, they generally believe in God, which in many countries in Europe we don't actually. England, France, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, a lot of the atmosphere is not pious at all. Austria. So America's got a lot more from the spiritual point of view. And still most of the leaders of our movement are Americans. Well, there are still quite a lot there, actually. There's quite a lot of... well, they're preaching in different ways. Like Vidyananda Maharaj, he's taken up a particular line which is important. He's developing that now. He's getting other his disciples and other devotees to get into the university system, and he's actually having some amazing successes. You see, like in conventions where they only invite professors to speak, but he's been allowed to give addresses. You know, they have like these seminars and conferences and different things, Indology, science. So he's been invited twice to speak, and he just presents our philosophy, but in a very scholarly way. But he's been invited to, even before he's completed his PhD, he's allowed to speak on the basis of his achievements, translating the Bhagavad Gita. Just when professors meet him, they're so impressed because he speaks their language and he knows his stuff, and he's doing very well. And there are other senior development, Radha Swami spending time there now, and Dhanavir, of course, he's always been based in America. Guru Granth Maharaj has been preaching continuously. Rampad Swami is holding the fort there in New York. So then Bhakti Radha Maharaj was back to Canada. So there are quite a lot, apart from sannyasis, there's so many senior devotees, householders are still involved. But somehow or other it's just not, there's a lot of talent and there's a lot of potential, it's just not all gelling. And they're definitely, they've lost, the movement as a whole in America, from what I can see, they're somewhat off track. Otherwise how would they do it in a high idea? They're into a lot of conferences talking about management and how to organize, but a lot of the basic things like Ainam Sankirtan, distributing books, and if we have those things, even if you're not sophisticated management, everything will go on. If you have those things plus sophisticated management, that's even better. But if you only have sophisticated management and you don't have the basics, it's all useless. But that again, Vidyananda Maharaj, he's very much promoting book distribution. He's sitting in the car and he's preaching, and he has his disciples out distributing books and picking up.
But you base examples of past feedback, so but for the Guru Maharaj, that's an interesting story also. On the other side, I think we should offer these stories also. There's a really good story about when Maharaj came back from India, sometime in Varahavan, was interested there a lot.
Right.
And you should sort of read these rings and read all of them. And even in India, he wanted to invite the British people. He said, required, you can serve them to meat. That is required, you can do that. And Srila Raj and Prabhupada protested a little bit. They rejected it. It's very bad. Especially Srila Raj. Speak up like that. Srila Raj.
He's from Brahmin family. He's very much conscious of that.
And
I'm sure it's definitely been talking about anyway.
Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati said, immediately said, no, I was in that position. Your opinion, I was in that position 1,000 years ago. You have to involve your opinion further. The preaching, you can do that. You yourself will let it over. For the cause. And sannyasis were even sometimes very different. Yes, they call it suited Buddha.
The preaching in England.
Preaching. No, I think they were using it in India. I mean, in India, I think. But they even had a term for it called suited Buddha. and then out, and you people might be good British people.
Maybe I didn't hear that. Well, of course, we're talking...
So how to reconcile that?
Reconcile means...
Very contradictory. One side is, so take it all back, and the other side is...
Well, we're talking about two different things. We're talking about one thing is collection, and the other is preaching. Yeah. So he was concerned that people would give a donation because they're actually satisfied with the preaching. And if by cheating them, then the devotee who's doing it also, he gets the whole impression of a big collector. This and that. But Prabhupada, he didn't do that. He did it. He allowed all kinds of collection. Prabhupada told also that sometimes the devotees, they would go and say, I'm collecting a Guru Maharaj lives in the forest and he only eats tulsi roots. Right. Bhaktivinoda Thakur states that in Bhakti Sutra. He said apparent contradictions in Shastra tells you something, tells you something, it's all reconciled in the pleasure of the Lord, with the sea of Krishna satisfied. So someone who might tell, you don't collect like this, and someone might tell you, don't dare to collect like that. You can see who's doing it, what is their motivation, how the Lord will be satisfied. Very interesting. And many times I've done about preaching in America, but I thought not now, because it's a big thing to get into. And I'm really, at this time in my life, I'm concentrating on two things, which is, one thing that takes most of my time, which is writing, and the other thing is helping to develop preaching in India. I go around myself and bringing men to do that. But America, it's definitely, it's a whole universe to enter into. It needs, for that kind of preaching, going to devotees living outside, you need senior men, you can't send young. Oh, definitely. They wouldn't accept me to come and try to say nothing to them. No way. It's just like, I'm a Hindu and I know everything. We used to have that when we first came to India. So the Hindus, because they saw, there's some young 20-year-old American trying to tell them something. And, he's only been telling Hare Krishna 6 months. How's he going to tell me? I know these things all my life. Now that mood has changed in India. But you can appreciate the same thing. Someone was initiated in 1970. And Pelican was born in 1970. And he's may not been accepted what he says. Needs senior men to do that. I don't know how we should do that. It's another whole universe. I think not this year, because this whole thing of preaching in this area, and the time starting this institute, I spend more time. I guess I could go for a month. But it's like, once you go in there, like Abhimanyu going into Jacob here, it's very hard to get out. That would be better, because I don't know hardly anyone in America. I know a few devotees like I've never been to America. And so somebody said that would be better. Otherwise, you know what? From what I understand, it's like, unless you have something going on, you can go bankrupt in the first few days because it's so expensive. And the temples, they don't, like the sannyasis who travel around, the temples won't help. And many temples they'll charge you for staying. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm going for collection, but at the same time, I'm not going to just do that. I did that in Europe. Some places I went to places, I spent a lot of money going, and no one gives you a penny. I did that in different places in Europe. And, I just can't go and do it. I won't go to those places again. I can't afford it.